I was 71 years old and fixing an irrigation pump the day the world quietly failed to end. It was late July, the kind of heat that makes the cicadas sound tired. And I'd been on my knees in the grass behind the pump house since 8 that morning, elbow deep in a housing gasket that had no business giving out twice in one season. The orchard ran about 11 acres back then, peach and a little apple on the north slope, and the pump was the only thing standing between that fruit and a dry August. My knuckles were skinned from the bolts, and the whole shape of my worry that morning was a gasket, a part, a dry field. So I wasn't looking at the sky. I heard it before I saw it. Not a roar, more like a held breath letting go. And when I stood up and turned around, there was a shape sitting in my south row, low and dull gray, pressed down into the grass between two peach trees, without breaking a single branch. I want to be honest about what I felt, because people ask. I didn't feel much of anything right away. My knees hurt from kneeling. My hands were black with grease. A man my age has usually already spent his fear on smaller things. A bad valve reading, a wife's diagnosis, a son who doesn't call, and there wasn't much left over for a shape in the orchard. So I wiped my hands on my trousers and walked over to see what had landed in my peaches. 3 of them came out of it. I'll say women, because that's the closest word I had, though nothing about them was trying to be a woman the way I understood the word. Long-fingered, gray-green in the shade, and almost silver where the sun hit them, eyes set a little too far apart, and pupils that opened long instead of round. They moved like people who had rehearsed moving like people, careful, and a beat too slow, the way you'd walk into a room you'd only ever seen in photographs. One of them carried a flat black device that she raised toward me before her boots had finished settling in the grass. She said something in a voice that had at least 2 tones running underneath each other, and the device between us said it again in English, a half-second behind her, flat as a weather report. Hold position. You are being assessed. Assessed. I remember that word specifically because it struck me as such an odd choice for a Tuesday. I asked if they were surveyors. County had sent people out before about the water table, and these 3 had that same look, clipboard energy, if you follow me, even without a clipboard. The lead one, the one with the device, went very still when the translator caught up to her ears. She said something short to the other 2, and one of them lifted her own instrument and pointed it at my chest, and I heard, again a half-beat late, "Subject exhibits no defensive posture. Confirm." "Confirm," said the second one, sounding almost put out about it. I didn't know what to make of that, so I did what I'd have done for the county water people, or the Jehovah's Witnesses, or anybody else who showed up on my land, looking a little lost in the heat. I told them it was too hot to be standing around a pump house arguing with a machine, and I asked if they wanted something cold to drink. The lead one's face did a thing then that I've turned over in my mind 100 times since. Not fear, not quite, more like the look a man gets when he's read the instructions twice, and the third step still isn't on the page. She looked at the little box, as if it might translate my question into something that made more sense than it had the first time. It didn't. It just repeated me back to her, word for word, patient as a clock. "There is lemonade in the icebox," I said. "Made it yesterday. Come sit on the porch. It's shadier." They followed me. I want that on record. 3 of them, from wherever they were from, walked behind an old man in grease-stained coveralls, up onto a porch with a bad third step, because I'd offered them something cold and they didn't have a category in their machine for turning that down. I told them to mind that step, loose since the spring thaw, and the box translated that too, dutiful as ever. The lead one paused on it like the warning was evidence she needed to weigh before trusting her weight to the wood. She stepped over it instead of on it. The other 2 copied her without being told, single file, careful as churchgoers. I poured lemonade into the only 3 glasses I had clean, plus my own mug, chipped blue thing, a rooster on the side that had lost half its tail to 40 years of dishwater, my late wife's mother's mug, older than my marriage had been. I set the mug at my own place at the table out of habit and gave the lead one a glass. She held it like it might detonate, watched me drink from mine first, then, very slowly, drank from hers, and went still again in that same instructed way, like she was waiting for a second shoe that never dropped. She asked, through the box, that half-beat lag, why I had not attempted to flee, or to summon others, or to offer resistance appropriate to an unknown incursion. She used those words, incursion. I told her I was 71, and the nearest neighbor was 4 miles off, and running had never once in my life solved a problem that sitting down with a cold drink hadn't solved better. She asked, too, whether I understood what they were. Not who, but what. I said I didn't, and that I'd lived 71 years without needing to understand most of what walked onto my land, from stray dogs to insurance men, and that hadn't stopped me giving any of them water when they needed it. She turned that over a while, glass sweating in her hand, and didn't drink again until I did. The third one, the quiet one, had been holding her scanner on me the whole time, and I watched her frown at whatever was scrolling across it. She said something to the lead one, low, and the box didn't catch all of it, just fragments. No elevation in threat markers. And then something that came through clean as a bell. There is no entry for this. That seemed to matter to them more than anything else that had happened all morning. The lead one set her glass down on my table, careful, like she didn't trust her own grip anymore, and asked me, plainly this time, no jargon in it, why I had given them a drink at all, when by every model they carried, I should have been the one being assessed for danger, and they the ones deciding whether I lived past lunch. I told her the honest truth, which is that I didn't know what she was, or what she'd come to do, and that not knowing didn't strike me as a good enough reason to be unkind to somebody standing in my shade in July heat. I said a man who waits to be kind until he's sure it's safe generally dies having never once been kind at all. She didn't have an answer to that. Neither did her machine. They didn't stay long after that. 20 minutes, maybe less. 3 glasses of lemonade between them, and a lot of quiet looking at instruments that kept telling them the same impossible thing. When they left, the lead one turned back at the edge of the grass and said something the box rendered plainly. This world will be marked non-viable for standard approach. Recommend indefinite hold. I didn't understand the weight of that sentence for a long time. I found out, later, in ways I still can't explain to anyone who wasn't there, that whatever came after us never did. No second visit, no fleet, no invasion the newspapers could print. Just the one hush of grass in my south row that grew back crooked for 2 summers, and then didn't. I'm 84 now. Can't kneel at the pump house anymore. My grandson does that, and does it better than I ever did. But every July, on a hot day like that one, I still set 2 glasses out on the porch table instead of 1, and pour my own into that same chipped blue mug with half a rooster on it. My grandson asked me once why I bothered with the second glass when nobody was coming. I told him it wasn't really for anybody coming. It was for the man who answered the door that morning, the one who hadn't yet decided whether a stranger in the grass deserved kindness or a shotgun, and chose kindness before he'd finished deciding. I like keeping a place at the table for him. Nobody's come to drink the second glass in 17 years. I leave it out anyway, every summer, sweating in the shade, same as it did that day. Some habits aren't really about who shows up. They're about who you'd be, if they did, and about a machine, somewhere past the edge of what I can point to, that still doesn't have a line item for a second mug of lemonade.